He was bullied for being the weakest, but when he discovers a genie that offers him a wish, he gains overwhelming power so that girls will be into him. The story begins with a boy named Aladdin as he practices introducing himself, because he's about to meet his new classmates. He lives with his mother, and they run a restaurant together. We cut to a shrine, where we see two students waking up with a hangover, but they sense a strange presence, as one of them mentions the legend about a honky person that has been sealed. They suddenly hear a strange noise, and a door opens, scaring them away. We learn that a honky person has a courageous heart, and he never retreats from a battle. During the age of samurai, warriors were said to have abandoned their weapons to fight barehanded, determined to become the best, and they epitomized the honky people. Aladdin arrives at the school, where his teacher gives him a tour, as he reveals that there are two gangs competing for the top spot. Aladdin sees gang members fighting, but he doesn't seem to care, asking his teacher if there are cute girls in the class, and his teacher affirms this. But as Aladdin joins the class, he realizes that it's full of delinquents. He introduces himself to his classmates, but they ignore him, as the teacher tells him to take a seat. He sees a cute girl in the classroom, and he immediately falls in love with her. He sits beside her, and she tells him that her name is Mahoro, causing him to become flustered, as he thinks about marrying her. After class, Mahoro approaches Aladdin, asking him if he wants to walk home with her. He agrees to her request, so she tells him that she'll be waiting for him at the gates, and he thinks that he's finally going to get some action. So he rushes outside, but his classmates stop him, and we learn that they are members of the Minato Kai, the top gang in the school. He finds them intimidating, so he dashes away as they chase after him. But he crashes into a man, who is also from Minato Kai, and his classmates tell him that he just ran into their best fighter. He thinks that he's going to get beat up, but his classmates are surprised, because the man recognizes him. We learn that the man is Mataka, and he's Aladdin's childhood friend. He introduces Aladdin to his gangmates, telling them that he trained with him to become honky people. He explains that Aladdin is a tough man, but his gangmates don't believe him because Aladdin looks like a loser. Mataka invites him to play with them, but he declines, saying he's in a hurry, and he rushes to the gate, but he realizes that Mahoro has already left. He returns home, where we see the students from the shrine, and his mother wonders if he met a girl he likes. He admits that he has fallen for someone, but his mother realizes that it's almost time for her favorite TV show, so she orders him to manage the restaurant. As he serves the customers, he overhears the students as they talk about the entity that was sealed in the shrine. At the covered court, we meet the leader of the Sigma gang, Marito, as his fighter apologizes for losing the fight against Mataka. But his fighter mentions that he likes Mataka, saying he's a nice guy, but Marito kicks him away. We return to Aladdin as his mother continues to enjoy her favorite TV show. He thinks about Mataka as he recalls the time that he saw him getting beat up, but he hears his mother reacting to the TV show, so he tells her to shut up. The next day, the teacher gives a lecture about history, but nobody's listening, and Aladdin realizes that Mahoro is absent. During lunch break, we see that Aladdin's mother prepared his food with love, and Mahoro sees it, thinking it looks cute. He sits beside her, asking her why she's absent, and she tells him that she just wanted to skip class. He apologizes for not showing up at the gate as he tries to explain what happened, but she tells him that it's okay, asking him if he's free on Saturday. He becomes excited, thinking she's asking him out on a date, but at that moment, Mataka interrupts them as he calls out to him. His gangmates ask him about Aladdin, thinking he's weak, but Mataka claims that he's an amazing person. His gangmates see Mahoro, and one of them thinks about telling Mataka because they know that she's trouble, but his friend stops him, saying he wants to see what's going to happen. Aladdin visits a store, and he decides to buy a stone, but his classmates approach him, and they start playing video games. They apologize for treating him harshly, and he's about to win the game, but his classmates notice a group of men approaching, so they decide to leave. Aladdin wins the game, but the group surrounds him, asking him if he's from a gang. He denies this, but they threaten him, telling him that he's playing in their territory. He tells them that he just transferred from a different school, and he tries to leave, but they threaten to beat him up. Moments later, we see him running away in his underwear, as his classmates laugh at him, thinking Mataka was wrong about him. He escapes to the shrine, but the group continues to pursue him, and he sees a gun on the ground, so he decides to use it, threatening to shoot them. But they laugh at him, thinking it's a toy, and they continue to approach him. So he fires the weapon, but he misses, and the bullet bounces off the wall, hitting his head, and causing the men to run away. But he realizes that he's still alive, and the bullet is stuck on his face. He tries to remove it, but he ends up summoning a genie, who reveals that his name is Senya, asking Aladdin about his wish. Aladdin wishes to get lucky with women, and Senya understands his situation, knowing Aladdin is still a boy. He offers to merge with him, but Aladdin refuses, so Senya starts following him around, and we learn that only Aladdin can see him. Meanwhile, Aladdin's classmates inform Mataka about what happened, thinking Aladdin is pathetic, but Mataka tells them that he's gentle, and he hates fighting, so he's trying to avoid conflict. Back in Aladdin's house, Senya watches the news, as Aladdin wonders if he has an imaginary friend. He starts carving a stone for Mahoro, thinking it will protect her for eternity, and turn her into his wife, but Senya finds him weird. Aladdin meets up with Mahoro, and they spend time together, as Senya wonders if he's going to give her the stone. But Aladdin tells him to shut up, and Mahoro finds him weird, because she can't see Senya. He observes her as she licks the ice cream, causing him to become nervous, and she tells him that she's happy to be with him. Senya tells him that this is his chance, advising him to make his move, so he decides to seize the moment, but he suddenly needs to poop. So he rushes to the bathroom, where he tells Senya that this always happens to him. He returns to Mahoro, and he gives her the stone, as she realizes that her name is carved on it, but she doesn't seem to like it. He tells her that it's a love forever stone, and he's about to confess his feelings. But they are suddenly surrounded by the Sigma gang, and Marito approaches them, as Aladdin wonders who he is. So he introduces himself to Aladdin, who decides to leave with Mahoro, but she notices that Marito is upset. So she asks Aladdin if he's willing to fight for her, and Marito reveals that he's Mahoro's brother, saying he's upset because Aladdin touched her. We cut to Mataka, as he sees Aladdin in trouble, so he rushes to save him. Aladdin receives a beating, and he thinks he's about to die. But Mahoro is enjoying the scene, because she likes to see Marito fighting for her. Senya thinks that Aladdin is just another victim, revealing that he has been with other people who ended up getting killed. He considers abandoning Aladdin, thinking merging with him would be a bad idea. But at that moment, he hears Aladdin as he refuses to back down, causing Senya to become excited, and he asks Aladdin about his wish. He becomes fired up, telling Senya that he wants to sleep with a girl, and he decides to merge with Aladdin. Marito is about to kick him, but he blocks the attack, and he exudes a sinister aura, as he punches Marito with all his might, blowing him away, and it looks like he doesn't stand a chance, because Aladdin and Senya are fighting as one. Mataka sees this, thinking Aladdin is like a honky person, but he looks confused, and Senya wonders what kind of request that was, since he's supposed to wish to become stronger. Mahoro is worried about Marito, but he gets back up, and he runs up to Aladdin, kicking him to the river. Aladdin dreams about the troublemakers who beat Mataka, and he wakes up scared, but he doesn't remember what happened. Mataka explains how he hit Marito, but he asks about Mahoro, so Mataka tells him that she went home, and he thinks it wasn't a good idea to hit her brother. He sees a stone, and Mataka explains that it's the friendship stone he gave him, but Aladdin doesn't care, and he prepares to leave. Mataka wonders if Aladdin started avoiding him because he's weak, but he doesn't remember anymore, saying it was a long time ago. Aladdin takes a bath, thinking about the strange day he had, and what he felt earlier. He asks Senya what he is, and Senya explains that he's a honky person, the man who came closest to reaching the pinnacle of power. He wants to merge with Aladdin again, explaining that they had a partial fusion during his fight, but it only lasted for one blow, and they need to merge their body and soul for him to become stronger. Aladdin considers it, but his mother enters the bathroom, so he argues with her. In the covered court, Mahoro is worried about what Aladdin did to Marito, when a member suddenly appears, wanting to talk to him. The member introduces himself as Jabba, a rookie who wishes to take Marito's place. Marito gives him a kebab to eat, and he wants to share privileged information. He explains that the Minato Kai wants to hire Aladdin, saying Mataka took him to his place. Jabba thinks that recruiting him is a bad idea, because he's connected with the Minato Kai, but Marito considers recruiting Mataka, knowing he's a strong fighter. So Jabba becomes upset, and tells Marito to remember that he will be his successor. The next day, Aladdin is on his way to school, but a group of bullies is waiting to face him because he was recognized after fighting with Marito. Senya notes that he's becoming popular, but Aladdin explains that he isn't interested in men, and when he yells at Senya, the others run away in fear. Marito suddenly runs after him, so he decides to flee. Meanwhile, Mataka tells his friends that he will invite Aladdin to Minato Kai. They don't seem to like Aladdin, but Mataka explains that the boss wants to see him. In the classroom, Senya wonders if he still likes Mahoro even after she made Marito beat him up, but Aladdin defends her, explaining that it was just a test. Marito suddenly appears looking for him, but Aladdin manages to escape through the window, climbing onto the school's roof. He meets Mahoro there and gets excited about the coincidence. He apologizes for what happened the day before, but he wants to fight Marito again to prove his worth. So Mahoro warns him that she will finish him off if he hurts Marito, and she takes out the love stone he gave her, throwing it to the ground. At his house, Aladdin is devastated by what happened with Mahoro, and he tries to put his stone back together. Meanwhile, Mataka writes a letter to his brother and shares that Aladdin was transferred to his school. He wants to train with Aladdin to be as powerful as a Honki person, and also looks forward to seeing his brother next month. Mataka returns to school, asking Aladdin to join Minato Kai, but Jabba arrives and attacks one of Mataka's friends. He reveals that he's there to eliminate Aladdin, so Mataka confronts him, and they decide to take the fight outside the school as everyone watches the fight. The fight begins, and Jabba starts to take advantage, managing to dodge all of Mataka's blows, but he manages to turn the tables, landing a powerful kick. But Jabba endures it, and he manages to make Mataka fall. But he can still block Jabba's attack, so he tries to land a headbutt as Mataka meets him head-on. Jabba falls to the ground, and the Minato Kai wins the fight. Senya gets angry at Aladdin for missing the fight, but he realizes that Mataka isn't well, and he's about to fall, so Aladdin catches him. After he recovers, Aladdin tells him that he wasn't bad, and Aladdin is about to leave, but Mataka invites him to join Minato Kai, so that they can try to be Honki people together. Aladdin tells him that this is just a fairy tale, but Mataka suggests going to their leader Ken, who is revealed to be Marito's rival. Hearing this, Aladdin decides to meet him, but upon seeing him, Aladdin is immediately intimidated, but he still challenges Ken to a fight. Senya is happy, because he's determined to become stronger, but Aladdin just wants to defeat Ken to prove his strength. Aladdin calls Senya, who asks him if he has already found his true desire, but he once again says that he wants to get a girl. They merge again, and Aladdin launches a punch with all his strength, pushing Ken against the wall as he feels the force of the blow. Everyone in the gang is speechless, and Mataka can't understand what he's seeing. Senya and Aladdin start to argue again, because Aladdin didn't wish to become stronger. Ken gets back up, walking up to Aladdin, and he blows him away. After the fight, the group is worried, thinking they're in trouble because Mataka brought Aladdin, but Ken laughs, and he mentions that he wants Aladdin to join the gang. The next day, we see Aladdin in his class, thinking he won against Ken, but Senya tells him that he lost again. He hears Marito's voice, so he tries to escape, but Marito enters through a window, saying he hasn't forgotten the blow he received, and asks Aladdin to join Sigma. Aladdin tries to deny the offer, but Mahoro appears, asking him to join, so he changes his mind, telling Marito that he will join the gang. But at that moment, Mataka arrives, telling him to join Minato Kai, but Marito explains that it's too late, because Aladdin has already joined Sigma. Mataka can't believe this, but Marito tells him that he'll have to take Aladdin by force. We cut to the gang known as the NG Boys, as the members think about their quota, thinking they'll be in trouble if they fail to meet it. Their leader Shindo knows about the conflict between Sigma and Minato Kai, and he thinks about making his move. We learn that the Minato Kai had a long-standing rivalry with the Ica Union, but Ken was able to score a decisive victory against their boss. So the Union was in shambles, but Marito took control, and he rebranded the Union into the Sigma Gang. We see a man named Tatsudo teaching Aladdin about the gang's history, but he doesn't care, because he only joined to make Mahoro happy. He hangs out with the gang, asking Jabba where they're going, but he still remembers what happened, telling Aladdin not to let his guard down. Marito receives a call, informing him that the preparations have been made for their party, and he tells Aladdin that he's going to spoil him with debauchery. Aladdin thinks he's finally going to get lucky, but at that moment, they see members of the NG boys robbing a student because they're trying to meet their quota. Marito attacks them, telling them not to rob his schoolmates, and Jaba asks them what they're doing there. They pull out their knives, saying they have no choice because Shindo is going to kill them if they don't meet their quota. But Marito kicks them away, knocking them out, as he tells them not to get carried away, and he returns the wallet to the student as he continues to make his way to the party. We cut to Mahoro as she leaves a voice message for Marito, inviting him to go out with her. But Mataka stops her, saying he needs to talk to her because he knows that she got Aladdin to join Sigma. She tells him to let her go, but he can't hear her, so he tells her to raise her voice. But she lets out a piercing scream, stunning Mataka as she dashes away. The Sigma gang welcomes Aladdin, and Marito tells them that his punching power is insane. He wonders why there are no girls in the party, and Marito announces that they will be playing a game, ordering them to partner up. Aladdin thinks that it's a kid's game, but they play rock, paper, scissors, and the winner punches the loser. We learn that it's a punching game, where the winner must turn the loser's head by hitting him, and Aladdin realizes that this is what Marito meant by debauchery. Everyone punches each other, and Marito and Senya are enjoying the game, but Aladdin just wants to go home. After a few rounds, Marito tells Aladdin to join them, saying he should display his punching power. He's forced to participate, and he begs Senya to merge with him, but Senya explains that he'll never be satisfied if he doesn't win with his own strength. A man named Otta approaches him, and everyone thinks he's a goner because Otta can smash concrete with his fists. Aladdin thinks he's going to die, so Senya agrees to help him as Tatsudo acts as the referee. The fight begins, and Otta wins in rock, paper, scissors, so he punches with all his might as Senya holds Aladdin's head. Otta hits him, but he doesn't move, and Otta's fist is fractured, surprising everyone because this is the first time someone was able to withstand his punch. Aladdin wins the game, and Otta heads to the toilet as Jabba challenges Aladdin. They play rock, paper, scissors, and Jabba loses, so Aladdin prepares to throw a light punch, wanting to lose the game. But Jabba realizes that Aladdin is staring at something, so he turns his head as Aladdin's attack lands. Tatsudo thinks he used a legendary martial arts technique, saying Jabba's head turned because Aladdin unleashed a mysterious energy. So Tatsudo declares him as the winner, and Marito approaches him, ready to fight him in the final round. Aladdin is intimidated, thinking Marito is going to crush his skull, and Marito reveals that he likes Aladdin because he was able to feel his home ki. Tatsudo begins the fight, but Aladdin feels sick, so Tatsudo tells him to go to the toilet. But upon arriving at the bathroom, he sees Otta unconscious, and everyone wonders who did this to him. They see a Minato Kai armband next to him, so Jabba thinks about getting revenge, but Marito knows that Ken wouldn't use dirty tactics, saying the Minato Kai isn't responsible for the attack. As they walk home, Tatsudo reveals that Otta is Marito's partner, and only Ken can match his strength, so everyone knows that an ordinary person doesn't stand a chance against him. Aladdin returns home, and he's surprised to see Mahoro, who thanks him for joining the Sigma gang. He tells her that he got hurt during the party, saying he's thinking about quitting, but she slaps him, telling him that he needs to become Marito's successor. So he decides to get stronger, and his mother wonders if they have already kissed, but we learn that Mahoro just wants Marito to leave the gang, so that she can spend more time with him. We see Aladdin training to achieve his goal, telling Senya that he wants to improve their merge rate, so that he can become Marito's successor. Senya is overjoyed to hear this, telling him that he's turning into a fine man, but Senya teaches him how to play the flute, saying they need to harmonize to improve their merge rate. That evening, Jabba and Tatsudo encounter members of the Minato Kai, and Jabba blames them for what happened to Otta. So he attacks them, but Tatsudo stops him, and they start walking away. But the NG boys arrive, assaulting the Minato Kai members. During their PE class, Mataka pairs up with Aladdin, and they start stretching together, as Mataka wonders what Mahoro told Aladdin, knowing she's the reason why he joined the gang. So he explains that he needs to become Marito's successor, surprising Mataka, and they end up crashing to the ground. Mataka learns about the attack on the Minato Kai members, and he sees them tied up, as everyone blames the Sigma gang. So they start attacking the members of Sigma, as the NG boys watch them from a distance. Marito sees his friends lying on the ground, and he realizes that there's a picture of him, telling him that he's next. So he decides to go to the Minato Kai's headquarters, where we see Mataka reporting the incident to Ken. Marito suddenly enters the room, and Mataka is surprised to see him, but he explains that he wants to repay his debt, saying he wants to see Ken. Marito suddenly attacks, so Mataka tries to stop him. But he gets kicked away, and he wonders why Sigma is doing this, but Jabba tells him that he already knows the answer. His friend Zabu blames Sigma for the attack on his comrades, saying they started it. But Jabba has no idea what he's talking about, and he knows that the Minato Kai attacked his gangmates. So he hits Zabu, pushing him back, and his friend Sagi becomes upset, so he prepares to fight, but Mataka tells everyone to calm down. Marito shows them the Minato Kai armband, saying it was left behind when Oda was ambushed, so he blames them for what happened, but Mataka explains that his friends would never do that. Marito doesn't appear to be convinced, so he tells them to capture the ones responsible for the attack and bring them to him tomorrow, threatening to wage war if they fail to comply. He tells Ken that he's ready to settle their conflict, and he walks away with his gang as the Minato Kai wonders what they should do next. We see Aladdin walking around the campus, determined to defeat Marito to make Mahoro happy. But he recalls that she was angry when he punched Marito, so he wonders how he's supposed to achieve his goal, and Senya suggests aiming for the gut, so that she won't see the damage. Aladdin thinks this is a brilliant plan, and he makes his way to the covered court, but upon seeing the Sigma gang, he realizes that everyone is tense. Tatsudo explains the situation to him, thinking the war is going to be violent, and everyone's going to suffer. Aladdin doesn't want to get involved, but he notes that his gangmates are fired up, so he realizes that he's going to get dragged into the mess, and Senya becomes excited, but Aladdin tells him to shut up. Tatsudo finds him weird, but he wonders how Marito is doing, so Tatsudo mentions that he's ready to fight Ken. We see Mataka with his friends, who are looking forward to the war, but he seems to be against it, because he's only interested in man-to-man combat. His friends notice a uniform in the room, knowing it belongs to his brother Mitsu. In a flashback, we see Mataka crying, as Mitsu is about to be sent to juvenile detention, but he approaches Mataka, reminding him that a honky person never runs away. He gives Mataka his uniform, and advises him to keep working to become a honky person, saying he believes in him. Back in the present, we learn that Mataka made a promise to Mitsu, and he's determined to keep it, saying his brother cares about the Minato Kai. Zabu reveals that Mitsu used to be their leader, saying he looks up to him. Mataka takes his friendship stone, and he leaves the room, as Sagi inquires about Zabu's jacket, because he hasn't been wearing it recently. He claims that the birds took it away, and Sagi seems to believe him, blaming the crows outside. But we learn that he encountered Shindo a few days ago, recognizing him as the emperor, but Zabu mocked him for getting banished from the Minato Kai. He tries to act friendly, but Zabu looks down on him, thinking he's weak. So he attacks Zabu, beating him up, and Shindo takes his armband, telling him that he just lost to a weakling. Zabu knows that his armband was used when Oda was ambushed, but he doesn't want to tell his friends about this, because they will think he's pathetic. We cut to Aladdin, as Senya tells him to train, but he thinks there's no need, because Marito and Ken are going to fight each other. He explains that if Marito wins, he will resign as the leader of Sigma, because he has already achieved his goal, which is to defeat Ken, and Aladdin will be assigned as the new leader. But if Ken wins, Marito will entrust Sigma's future to Aladdin, and Mahoro will fall into despair, because her brother will die. But he'll be there to cheer her up, so he thinks he's going to be with her no matter what happens. Aladdin returns home, and he sees Mataka waiting for him. He asks Mataka what he wants, and he implores Aladdin to stop Marito, thinking there's been a misunderstanding, because he knows that the Minato Kai didn't ambush Oda. He tells Aladdin that honky people wouldn't fight over a misunderstanding, but Aladdin tells him to stop acting like a kid. He mentions that Aladdin always stood by his side, as he recalls the moment that Aladdin gave him the friendship stone, telling him that they should become honky people together. He mentions that he still wants to become a honky person with Aladdin, but he tells Mataka to leave, because he doesn't care about the past. Mataka goes home, and we learn that Mitsu will be released after a month, but Mataka mentions that he doesn't know what to do, wishing his brother to come back. The next day, Aladdin approaches Mahoro, telling her that Marito will graduate from the Sigma gang after winning the war, and he'll take over as the leader. She doesn't appear to care, but she mentions that he has a point, saying she will no longer need him after Marito graduates. Aladdin wonders what she means, but at that moment, Mataka arrives, telling Mahoro that he needs to talk to her. So she leaves Aladdin, who tries to tell her to stay away from the Minato Kai, but she completely ignores him, and she agrees to talk to Mataka. Aladdin watches them, wondering if Mataka is trying to steal Mahoro, and Senya tells him that he has no chance, because Mataka is better than him. Mataka tells Mahoro that there's something strange about the conflict, telling her to convince Marito to stop the war, but she refuses, and she's about to leave. Mataka explains that Marito could end up dying, causing her to become worried, but she thinks that he'll never listen to her, so she decides not to get involved. But Mataka stops her, telling her to persuade Aladdin to talk to Marito, thinking he will listen to Aladdin, but Mahoro thinks it's impossible, and she continues to walk away. Mataka insists, so Mahoro tries to scream, but he covers her mouth, and Aladdin becomes devastated, thinking they're having an intimate moment. Mataka mentions that he wants to keep his promise to his big brother, and Mahoro realizes that they have something in common, so she decides to listen to him. After that, Mahoro approaches Aladdin, telling him to convince Marito to stop the war. He becomes confused, but she uses her charm, and he immediately agrees to do it. So Aladdin approaches Marito, but he becomes intimidated, unable to say anything, and Marito gives Aladdin food, as he mentions that his hunger is never satisfied. The Minato Kai is ready for war, and Ken makes his entrance, as Mataka tries to stop him, saying Aladdin is going to talk to Marito. But he has already made up his mind, saying it's time to settle the conflict. Ken leaves with his men, but Mataka stays in the headquarters, and Zabu approaches him, telling him that Shindo was the one who attacked Oda. Zabu blames himself for everything, but Mataka thanks him for telling the truth, and he decides to look for Shindo. Meanwhile, Aladdin walks home, wondering what he should do, because he wasn't able to convince Marito to stop the war. Senya tells him that Mahoro is going to end up with Mataka, and he freaks out, as he recalls the moment they spent together. Senya tells him to calm down, pushing him away, and he falls to the ground, as he encounters Shindo, who looks down on him, telling him to get out of the way. He becomes upset, so he tries to attack, but Shindo stops him with his whip, as Senya calls him a coward for using a weapon. He decides to merge with Aladdin, and with their powers combined, Aladdin charges at Shindo, who tries to stop him with his whip. But Aladdin endures it, and he punches with all his might. Shindo manages to block it, but he immediately follows up, blowing Shindo away. Aladdin thinks it's over, but Shindo mentions that he remembers the pain, and he gets back up, causing Aladdin to become confused. But Senya realizes that Shindo isn't alone, because he also has a genie named Ichiya. We cut to the NG boys, as they craft weapons for the war, struggling to complete their task before the deadline, but Mataka suddenly arrives, saying he has business with Shindo. They know that he's from the Minato Kai, so they try to attack him, but he kicks them away, and he sees the weapons they made, realizing that they're preparing for war. Shindo makes his entrance, saying they're entertaining a special guest, and Mataka is surprised to see that it's Aladdin, wondering what he's doing there. Shindo wonders if they're friends, but Aladdin denies this, asking Mataka what he's doing there. So he explains that the NG boys are behind the conflict, but Shindo tries to play dumb, so he decides to fight him. Aladdin tries to stop Mataka, but he refuses to back down, and they start fighting. He dodges Shindo's whip, and tries to land a counterattack, but Shindo blocks it. He manages to catch Mataka, and he lands a devastating attack, knocking him down. Shindo mentions that the Minato Kai must be weak, because Mataka is considered as one of their best fighters, but he's no match for him, and Senya recognizes Shindo's move, thinking he must have merged with Ichiya. Mataka is held captive, but Aladdin enters his cell, wondering if he's okay. He wonders what Aladdin is doing there, so he tries to explain the situation. We return to his fight with Shindo, as Aladdin charges at him, saying he wants to get lucky with girls. But Shindo stops him, calling him a cherry boy, and causing him to become upset. But Shindo explains that there's nothing wrong with that, and he takes Aladdin to their base, where he watches as the NG girls dance for him. He enjoys the moment, and they ask him about the Emperor, so he starts recognizing Shindo as his master. Back in the cell, Aladdin refuses to tell Mataka the truth, because it's too embarrassing, so he claims that he has his own reasons. He wonders why Mataka wants to stop the war, so he explains that he doesn't consider it as a real fight, because Shindo set everything up. Aladdin doesn't understand the concept of a real fight, so Mataka wonders what happened to him, because he used to train to become a honky person. But he explains that he doesn't care about honky people, and at that moment, Shindo arrives, saying he seems to have a special relationship with Mataka. He tells Aladdin to join him, so he leaves the cell, as Mataka tells him that he always believed in him. In a flashback, we see Aladdin and Mataka as they're approached by bullies. Mataka explains that they're training to become honky people, and the bullies mock him, because he sounds like a dork. Aladdin tells him to let it slide, but he refuses to back down, and he charges at them, but they beat him up, as Aladdin watches from a distance, knowing he's no match for them. They look down on him for abandoning Mataka, telling him that he's next, so he starts running away. Back in the present, the Sigma gang is waiting in the Colosseum, and they see the Minato Kai approaching. Mahoro watches Marito, thinking he's going to leave the gang after he defeats Ken, but she wonders what happened to Aladdin and Mataka. Shindo introduces Aladdin to the NG boys, calling him their special guest, as he mentions that he's in the Sigma gang, but he doesn't belong there, because Marito is a freak. Everyone agrees with Shindo, saying they hate Marito, and he invites Aladdin to join them, telling him to leave Sigma. He feels tempted because of the girls, and Shindo explains their motto, which doesn't make any sense, but everyone still recognizes him as their emperor. Aladdin thinks this is ridiculous, but Shindo mentions that the final battle is about to begin, and he wants them to win the fight, saying he will kill them if they fail. Aladdin is surprised to see the crowd's reaction, because they appear to be brainwashed, and he starts talking to Senya, but Shindo notices this. He tells Aladdin that it's time to go, saying they will interfere while Sigma and Minato Kai are fighting, so that they will be the ones who come out on top. Mataka is still in his cell, trying to call out to Aladdin, who completely ignores him. He wonders if Aladdin no longer wants to become a honky person, but he sees his friendship stone, thinking Aladdin would never give up on his dream. It's almost time for the war, and Zabu tries to call Mataka, but he isn't picking up, so Zabu decides to look for him. Marito removes his shirt, ready to settle the conflict, and Mahoro takes pictures of him, thinking he looks like a god. We return to Aladdin, as Shindo asks him about Mataka, because he mentions something about honky people. Aladdin explains that they used to play together, and Mataka hasn't moved on from the past. Shindo wonders if Aladdin visited the honky shrine, but Senya tells him to deny it, so he tells Shindo that he's never been there. Shindo takes a liking to him, inviting him to be his right-hand man, but Aladdin thinks that he isn't fit for the role. Shindo tells him he will have his moment with the girls, and he's tempted to join, but he remembers Mahoro, so he can't make up his mind. Shindo mentions that he's going to crush the other gangs, saying he wants to defeat Ken, but Aladdin wonders why he's doing this. In a flashback, we learn that Ken saved Shindo from a group of thugs, so he started looking up to him, wanting to join the Minato Kai. Shindo begins his training, trying to get stronger so that he can join the gang, and one day, we see him fighting his senior. He appears to be winning, but the boy grabs his leg, and he realizes that he's about to lose, so he starts using his weapon. But it shatters upon impact, as Ken interferes, and everyone looks down on him, because he doesn't fight fair. He claims that he won the fight, but everyone ignores him, and he ends up getting banished from the Minato Kai. Because of this, he's determined to defeat Ken, and he's willing to kill anyone who stands in his way. We return to the present, as Shindo thinks that Aladdin is just like him, but he mentions that he's a pacifist, so he isn't willing to kill people for revenge. But Shindo knows that he will do anything to get girls, telling him that they like strong men, so he becomes determined to get stronger. Meanwhile, Ken removes his shirt, and everyone is surprised to see his body, because he looks like an absolute unit. Mahoro thinks that Marito is going to die, so she wants Aladdin and Mataka to do something. Zabu enters the NG boys' warehouse, and he rescues Mataka, who tells him to hurry, because Shindo is headed to the Colosseum. The NG boys are ready for war, but Senya thinks they're pathetic, because they're relying on their weapons to fight. Aladdin isn't interested in the war, but Senya tells him not to back down, because their merge rate will improve if he joins the fight. He starts feeling sick, so he rushes to the bathroom, but Shindo stops him, telling him about their plan to take Mahoro. Shindo knows that she's Marito's sister, so he wants to turn her into their plaything, thinking she would make a good trophy. But Senya is surprised, as Aladdin's power begins to awaken, and he forces Senya to merge with him. He delivers a devastating blow, knocking Shindo down, and Senya wonders what just happened. But he starts feeling sick again, so he rushes to the bathroom as Shindo recovers, knowing Senya is with him. Back in the Colosseum, the war is about to begin, but Mataka arrives, telling everyone that Shindo is responsible for the mess. Zabu admits that Shindo stole his armband, but nobody cares, because they're all spoiling for a fight. But at that moment, they see the NG boys chasing Aladdin, and Mataka is happy to see him, but Shindo becomes upset, because the fight hasn't started yet. Everyone becomes confused, wondering why the NG boys are involved, and Mataka implores Ken to stop the war, but he doesn't listen, because he has already decided to fight. Marito charges at Ken, and they're about to start the war, as Mataka realizes that there's nothing he can do to stop them. Aladdin starts running away, because he doesn't want to get involved, but he falls to the ground, and he realizes that the NG boys are watching. Ken and Marito clash, and this signals the beginning of the war, as everyone starts fighting. We see Otto watching them from a distance, and in a flashback, we see Marito and Otto when they first entered the academy. Everyone recognizes them as the God Kings, the students who dominated Honky City when they were in middle school. Otto thinks about joining one of the top gangs in the academy, but Marito isn't interested, and a member of the Ica Union tries to intimidate Otto, trying to show him who's boss. But Otto punches him away, and Marito walks over him, as Otto notes that Marito appears to be burned out after they became the top dogs in middle school. Otto wants to find someone who can light his fire again, and another member of the Ica Union approaches Otto, inviting them to join the union. After some time, we see Marito and Otto walking around the campus, and they see the leader of the union, Shiba, as he challenges Ken to a fight. But Ken easily takes him out, and the Minato Kai celebrates, thinking the union is done for, but Marito suddenly charges in, trying to attack Ken. He manages to defend himself, pushing Marito back, and he becomes excited, realizing that Ken is a worthy opponent. But he suddenly walks away, so Marito wonders why he doesn't want to fight. With Shiba defeated, the union has no leader, so the members beg Marito to take over, but he doesn't care, asking them why Ken doesn't want to fight him. So they tell him that Ken isn't interested in fighting people without conviction, saying he will fight Marito if he becomes the leader of the union, but he still isn't interested. At the Minato Kai's headquarters, we see Otto approaching Ken, challenging him to a fight, as Otto claims that he's the new leader of the union. Everyone hears about this, and they watch the fight, as Otto attacks Ken with a devastating blow. But he manages to endure it, and he easily defeats Otto. He's about to leave, but Marito approaches Otto, who tells him that he's their only hope. He realizes that Otto planned everything, so that he can have the fight he always wanted, and he mentions that all he cares about is excitement as he tries to attack Ken. Ken tries to stop him, but Marito manages to overpower him, landing a powerful kick. Everyone's surprised to see this, and Ken becomes excited, so they start exchanging blows, and the fight ends in a draw, but Otto is happy that Marito is finally back to his old self. Having found his match, Ken refuses to graduate from high school because he's waiting for Marito to defeat him. Back in the present, Ken and Marito continue to fight, as Mahoro watches them, but she becomes nervous, thinking Marito is in trouble. Aladdin tells her to be careful, but she tells him to stop the fight, so he tries to talk to them, but they aren't listening to him. They both attack with everything they have, and they're able to hit each other, releasing a shockwave and shattering the ground beneath them. Everyone's surprised to see this, but they realize that Marito and Ken are unconscious. Mahoro checks on Marito, and Aladdin wonders if they should call an ambulance, but she tells him that she's done with him, causing him to become devastated. Shindo arrives, ordering the NG boys to attack, and everyone realizes that they're behind the mess, preparing to take them on. Senya is excited, because he wants to fight Achiya, telling Aladdin that they should join in, but he starts walking away, saying nothing matters now that Mahoro has rejected him. Senya tells him that his friends are fighting for their lives, asking him if he's going to abandon them, but he doesn't care, saying they aren't even his friends. Senya is disappointed in him, but as he's about to leave, Shindo gets in the way, asking him about Senya. He's surprised to hear this, wondering how Shindo learned about Senya, and he starts attacking Aladdin, knocking him down. Shindo tells him to merge with Senya if he doesn't want to die, and Senya tells him that they should do it because Shindo is going to kill him. But he thinks that he has no reason left to live because he was rejected by Mahoro. Mataka realizes he's in trouble, so he becomes distracted, and a boy hits his leg, causing him to get injured as the NG boys approach him, preparing to take him out. Shindo continues his beatdown, thinking Ichiya was wrong about Aladdin because he's incredibly weak. Shindo realizes that his men are losing, so he decides to join the fight, revealing that he planned everything as he thanks everyone for destroying each other. So they become upset, and Saki tries to attack him, but he counters, knocking Saki down. Zabu charges in, but Shindo dodges his attacks and easily takes him out. He challenges everyone to gang up on him, and he attacks them with his whip, but Jabba manages to close the distance, trying to land a headbutt, but Shindo strikes his head. He easily defeats everyone, but Mataka manages to land a powerful kick, breaking his neck. But it snaps back into place, and he starts assaulting Mataka. Aladdin sees this, and he recalls the moment that Mataka was attacked by the bullies, as Senya asks him if he's going to let his friend die. But he doesn't respond, and Senya becomes frustrated, because he wants to defeat Ichiya. Shindo lands a devastating kick, knocking Mataka down, and he tries to fight back, but he suddenly collapses. Shindo realizes that he's the last man standing, and he thinks about torturing everyone, but Mahoro approaches him, telling him to get lost. So he attacks her, and Aladdin sees this, realizing she's in trouble. He tells her to run, but she refuses to back down, saying she isn't afraid of Shindo. She calls him a nobody, causing him to become upset, and he's about to end her life, but everyone's surprised as Aladdin stops him. He tells Aladdin to give up, launching a combination of attacks, but he completely endures it. So Shindo attacks him with everything he has, but Aladdin isn't backing down, and Senya realizes that their merge rate is off the charts. Aladdin throws a punch, but Shindo manages to dodge it, and he tries to land a counterattack. But Aladdin blocks it, and everyone starts cheering for him as he manages to overpower Shindo, leaving him wide open, and Aladdin punches him with all his might, blowing him away. He tries to get back up, but he's completely exhausted, and everyone celebrates Aladdin's victory. Senya is surprised, because he wasn't expecting Aladdin to win the fight, knowing Shindo is possessed by Ichiya. Aladdin approaches Mahoro, asking her if she's okay, but she doesn't respond, and everyone clings to him, thinking he's amazing. We see that Marito and Ken have regained consciousness, and Mataka tells Aladdin that he always believed in him. But Aladdin doesn't care, and he starts walking away, but he realizes that Mataka is injured, so he helps him, telling him it's time to go home. Aladdin returns to his mother, who realizes that he's in terrible shape, so she wonders if he got into a fight, but he refuses to say anything. He takes a shower, as Senya mentions that he was wrong about Aladdin because he has proven himself to be a great fighter. But he mentions that he only cares about Mahoro, wondering how Shindo found out about Senya. Senya claims that he doesn't know, and Aladdin feels intense pain as Senya thinks about Ichiya, realizing that the time has finally come. We return to Marito while he was still in the Ica Union, as he mentions that he wants to defeat Ken. He doesn't want to become the leader of the Union, because he thinks the name is terrible, so he thinks about changing the name to Sigma, and the members think it's a great idea. We see Aladdin walking around the campus, as Senya tells him that he has finally awakened his inner Honki. He thinks that he's worthy to become Marito's successor, so Mahoro is going to fall in love with him, but when he enters the classroom, he realizes that she isn't there. Sagi suddenly approaches him, saying he's an amazing fighter, and Mataka appears, telling him that Mahoro is in the hospital watching over Marito. Hearing this, he rushes to get to her, and Mataka joins him as he reveals that Mitsu is in juvenile detention because he assaulted a cop who was forcing his friends to sell drugs. Mataka recalls that Mitsu wants him to become a honky person, and this is the reason why he isn't giving up on his dream. He mentions that Mitsu is going to be released next week, and Aladdin is happy to hear this. In the hospital, we see Mahoro looking after Marito, and she's about to give him food, but we see that it looks disgusting. She's about to feed him, but he doesn't want to eat it, so he grabs her arm, causing her to become flustered. At that moment, Aladdin enters the room, but Mahoro becomes upset, wondering what he's doing there. Marito greets him, saying he wants to leave the hospital, but Mahoro tells Aladdin to leave, because he isn't a part of their family. But Marito tells her to leave instead, and she runs away, so Aladdin chases after her. She stops him, telling him he's a nobody, and she walks away, but he becomes flustered, thinking she likes him. Marito congratulates him for winning against Shindo, inviting him to have a group date, and he immediately agrees to join. Tatsudo tells Aladdin about the event, and he realizes that the Minato Kai will be joining Sigma, so he becomes upset, thinking Mataka is going to ruin his moment with Mahoro. Tatsudo tells him that everyone heard about his recent victory, so he's going to become popular, telling him that they're going to have the event at the beach, where Mahoro will be wearing a swimsuit, so he becomes excited. We cut to Mataka's house, where we see Sagi training, saying he's inspired by Aladdin. Mataka mentions that he was like a honky person, and everyone's looking forward to the group date, but Zabu isn't in the mood, saying he feels like he owes Aladdin. We see Aladdin flexing his muscles, thinking he's going to get lucky tomorrow, but Senya tells him that he has no muscularity whatsoever, and his mother comments that his arm looks cute. That evening, Aladdin tells Senya that he feels like a real man, and Senya admits that he was impressed by Aladdin's fighting skills. He decides to join the group date, thinking he's going to have fun and enjoy his moment with Mahoro. The next day, Aladdin heads to the beach, and he sees a tent, so he decides to enter it. He realizes that they're going to have a group combat date, and Tatsudo announces that the event is about to begin, so everyone becomes excited. For the first match, Ota is fighting against Ken, and they start grappling with each other, but Ota manages to score a takedown. But Ken gets back up, and he charges at Ota, pushing him against the ropes. Tatsudo thinks he's done for, but Ken suddenly stops moving, so Tatsudo checks on him, and he realizes that Ken's back is broken. Ota is announced as the winner of the match, but he suddenly collapses, and they call a doctor, because both fighters are in terrible shape. Zabu approaches Aladdin, saying he's looking forward to their fight, and Aladdin realizes that he's one of the fighters. So he becomes devastated, knowing he won't be seeing Mahoro in a swimsuit. Sagi forces his opponent to surrender, allowing him to secure victory, but Marito enters the ring, blowing him away. Marito is declared as the winner, and Mahoro takes pictures of him, thinking he's like a god. She becomes hungry, so Aladdin offers to get food for her. Meanwhile, we see the NG boys preparing food for everyone, and Shindo isn't happy, asking Ichiya for advice, but he tells Shindo to tolerate it. Aladdin is surprised to see him, asking him why he knows about Senya, but he refuses to answer, and Senya pulls Aladdin away. We see Mataka fighting, and he's able to secure victory, impressing everyone, because he has already eliminated 7 fighters. Zabu prepares to fight, but he's instantly defeated, and we see Marito crushing his opponents. Aladdin realizes that Mataka is the only fighter left in the Minato Kai, thinking he doesn't need to fight. But Marito tells him to be Mataka's partner, saying they're going to have a tag team match for the final round. Aladdin is against this, but Mataka doesn't mind, so Aladdin falls into despair, telling Senya to merge with him. But Senya tells him that he should rely on his own strength, and Mataka is looking forward to the match. Tatsudo is about to begin the fight, and Aladdin tells Mataka to take the lead, but he doesn't plan to help Mataka if he gets into trouble. He starts grappling with Jabba, and he gets pushed back as Jabba starts beating him up. But he fights back, and they appear to be evenly matched. Aladdin cheers for him, but he sees Mahoro telling Marito to tag in, so he decides to fight, wanting to show her what he's made of. Jabba is about to beat him up, but Marito wants to fight him. Jabba explains that he doesn't need help, but Marito insists, and Jabba becomes scared, so he lets Marito fight. But Aladdin is intimidated, so he pretends that he has a leg cramp, telling Mataka to fight Marito. Marito starts beating him up, but he refuses to give up, and he tries to retaliate, but he gets caught in a submission move, as Marito asks Aladdin if he's going to let his friend die. He wants Mataka to give up, thinking the fight doesn't matter, but he manages to break free, and he lands a counterattack. Everyone is impressed by his resolve, because he's fighting with a broken shoulder, and Marito's nose starts bleeding, surprising everyone, since they weren't expecting him to get hurt. But he gets serious, launching Mataka to the air, and preparing to finish him off. But Aladdin mentions Marito's favorite food, causing him to become distracted, and he falls to the ground. He suddenly starts attacking Aladdin, so Tatsudo tries to stop him, but he gets knocked down. Marito starts looking for his favorite food, kicking Aladdin away, and Mataka tries to stop him, but Jabba gets in the way. Marito clings to Aladdin, wondering where his favorite food is, and Jabba tries to land a headbutt, but Mataka slams him against the ground, knocking him out. Mataka attacks Marito, but he goes berserk, throwing Aladdin away, and he lands on Jabba, pinning him by accident, and Aladdin ends up winning the match. Everyone celebrates, thinking the fight was amazing, but Marito becomes frustrated, and he ends up destroying the tent. After the event, Mataka tells Aladdin that he had a great time, but Aladdin doesn't want to do it again. Mataka tells him that he fights like a honky person as a camel walks past them, and he sees Mahoro riding it, so he chases after her. But we see Shindo watching them with Uchiha, and it looks like they're up to something. In a flashback, we see Mataka visiting the shrine with Mitsu, who tells him that a honky person never runs away from battle. He senses a strange presence, so he asks Mitsu about it, but he doesn't see anything, telling Mataka that it only affects weak people's hearts. Back in the present, Mataka looks forward to seeing his brother, knowing he's about to be released from juvenile detention. We see Mahoro looking at pictures of Marito when Aladdin approaches her, but she doesn't want to talk to him. He thinks she's upset because he fought against Marito, saying he was forced to do it, but he thinks he's finally worthy to become Marito's successor, so he tries to ask her out. But Mahoro leaves him, and Mataka arrives, saying they should eat together, but Aladdin thinks he ruined the moment. He tells Aladdin that he's planning a welcome home party for Mitsu, asking Aladdin if they can do it in his restaurant, because Mitsu likes Chinese food, and Aladdin agrees to this. So Mataka tells his gang about the party, and they're all looking forward to it. Aladdin walks back home, and Senya is excited to see Mitsu, thinking he must be a capable fighter. Aladdin reveals that he's said to be stronger than Ken, so Senya wants to fight him, saying Aladdin should merge with him again. But Aladdin wonders why Senya wants to keep merging with him, so Senya explains that he wants to build a family with Aladdin, but he refuses, thinking Senya is weird. Meanwhile, Mataka is cleaning the shrine when he sees the NG boys attacking Shindo because he made them suffer, but Mataka tells them to stop, threatening to beat them up. So they walk away, and he checks on Shindo, asking him if he's okay. He thanks Mataka for helping him, and he apologizes for his actions, saying Aladdin helped him realize his mistakes, as he mentions that Aladdin fought like a honky person. He reveals he also wanted to become a honky person, but he gave up on his dream, and Mataka realizes they aren't so different, saying he used to train with Aladdin, but he's nowhere near Aladdin's level. Shindo finds this strange, saying he knows how Aladdin got stronger, and he mentions that the temple holds a secret, but he decides not to tell Mataka, saying he's better off not knowing. Shindo leaves the temple, but we learn that he was following the orders of Uchiha, who promises to help him get revenge. That evening, we see Mataka and Aladdin at the restaurant, preparing for the party, as Aladdin's mother reveals that she's excited to see Mitsu, wondering how old he is. So Mataka reveals that he's 21 years old, and she thinks he's at the perfect age, but Aladdin tells her to get back to work. Mataka helps Aladdin prepare the food, but he keeps messing up, because he doesn't know how to make gyoza. So Aladdin teaches him how to do it, but he still doesn't get it, and Aladdin tells him to clean up his mess. Mataka recalls that he used to cook with Mitsu, but they ended up burning the food. So Aladdin tells him that he should teach Mitsu how to cook, asking him if they're going to be living together, and he confirms this, saying they're going to rent an apartment. The next day, we see Mataka preparing to fetch Mitsu, and everyone heads to the restaurant, looking forward to his return. But as Mataka reaches the detention facility, a man approaches him, telling him that Mitsu suffered a fatal injury, and he may not live to see another day. Mataka disappears, and his friends start looking for him, wondering why he didn't go to the party. Zabu heads to Mataka's house, where a woman tells him what happened, saying Mataka hasn't returned home, so he decides to continue searching, wondering where Mataka spends his free time. Aladdin returns to his classroom, trying to talk to Mahoro, but she completely ignores him, and Zabu approaches him, saying they need to talk, but he refuses to leave Mahoro, so Sagi drags him away. They tell him about the news, saying Mitsu got stabbed at the detention facility, and they aren't sure if he's going to make it. They ask Aladdin if he knows where Mataka is, but he tells them that he has no idea, saying they know Mataka better than he does. So Zabu becomes upset, saying he's supposed to be Mataka's buddy, but he denies this, so Zabu leaves him, thinking he's useless. Aladdin heads to the rooftop, trying to look for Mahoro, but she's nowhere to be found, and he opens his lunchbox, realizing it's filled with the gyoza that Mataka made. We see Mataka moping when he notices a commotion, and he sees a dark figure approaching him, causing him to panic. So he tries to run away, but he becomes exhausted, and the dark figure catches up to him. Mataka heads to the restaurant, where he sees Aladdin's mother, who asks him if he's okay, but he tells her that he's looking for Aladdin, so she allows him to enter the house. He visits Aladdin in his room, realizing that he's sleeping, and Mataka sees the bullet on his head, as he recalls that Shindo told him that Aladdin has a secret. So he touches the bullet, causing Senya to appear, and Mataka runs away, hiding in an alley, where he meets Shindo, who tells him that Senya is the reason why Aladdin got stronger. Mataka refuses to believe this, saying Aladdin is a capable fighter, but Shindo tells him that he saw it with his own eyes, saying Aladdin is fooling him. Senya tells Aladdin about Mataka, so Aladdin starts looking for him, and he sees Mataka at the temple, asking him if he's okay. But he asks Aladdin if his strength is real, revealing that he saw Senya, and Mataka calls him the strongest fighter in the school. But he reminds Mataka about the bullies, and Mataka recalls that he was too weak to defeat them, thinking this is the reason why Aladdin started ignoring him, so he tried to get stronger. He thinks Aladdin saved him from the bullies, but he denies this, saying he abandoned him when he lost consciousness. Mataka refuses to believe this, thinking that Aladdin is lying, but he says it's the truth, revealing that he's powerless without Senya. Mataka wonders if he has given up on his dreams, so he tells Mataka that he's no longer interested in becoming a honky person, and he walks away. Shindo enters the temple, and he sees Mataka in the corner, so he takes a gun, causing Mataka to panic, but Shindo tells him that there's nothing to fear, because his suffering is about to end. He helps Mataka hold the gun, telling him to aim for the dark figure, and he pulls the trigger, but the bullet bounces off, hitting him in the chest, and causing him to pass out. Moments later, he regains consciousness, but he realizes that the bullet is stuck in his chest, and he touches it, causing a mysterious energy to surround him, as Ichiya suddenly appears. We learn that Ichiya betrayed Shindo, because he wasn't supposed to transfer to Mataka, but he explains that he will always choose the strongest host, saying Mataka has immense potential. Shindo becomes upset, realizing that Ichiya lied to him, but Ichiya tells him to be thankful, because he could have taken over his body. Shindo tries to shoot himself, wanting to reclaim Ichiya, but the gun doesn't fire, and Ichiya thinks he's useless. We cut to the NG boys, as they start enjoying themselves, realizing that life is so much better without Shindo, but he overhears this, so he decides to leave them. Aladdin is working at the restaurant, as Senya tells him that he should have been nicer to Mataka, but he thinks he did the right thing, saying Mataka is annoying. So Senya hits him, but he thinks it isn't enough, thinking about hitting him again, but they're interrupted by Aladdin's mother. We cut to Shindo, as he destroys everything in the shrine, saying he'll never forgive Ichiya. But he sees a flyer about honky people, and he discovers a secret about them. We see Mahoro in Marito's room, where she pretends to have a tea party with him, but she hears him approaching, so she hides under the bed. He arrives with Ada, who tells him what happened to Mitsu, and he isn't happy to hear this, thinking Mitsu isn't supposed to go down so easily, because he's said to be stronger than Ken. Ada thinks Mataka is depressed, telling Marito that he's Mitsu's brother, and the siblings are surprised to hear this. Marito searches around his room, wondering if Mahoro is listening, but he doesn't see her, and Ada tells him about Mataka, saying he hasn't been going to school. Mataka enters the shrine, where he summons Ichiya, but we learn that the dark figure is still following him. Ichiya realizes that his heart is weak, telling him it's because of Aladdin, and advising Mataka to get rid of him. But Mataka thinks Ichiya is lying, saying he's been training to get stronger because Aladdin left him, but the dark figure never disappeared. Ichiya tells him that he wasn't pursuing true strength, because he wasn't aiming for the top, and he recalls how he lost to Ken, realizing he wasn't strong enough, but the Minato Kai invited him to join them. He's happy that they accepted him into the group, but Ichiya tells him that his friends are making him weaker, saying he should abandon them if he wants to become a honky person. Ichiya explains that Aladdin is the source of his weakness, saying he will never become a honky person unless he defeats Aladdin. Aladdin thinks about Mahoro, wondering if she wants to go out with him. Mahoro approaches him, causing him to become overjoyed, and he starts talking to her, but she asks him about Mataka, knowing he's depressed because of what happened to Mitsu. She reveals that she can feel his pain, and Aladdin is surprised to hear this, asking her if she likes Mataka and telling her not to think about his problems. But she asks Aladdin if he has ever considered Mataka's feelings, thinking he's a despicable person, so she doesn't want to talk to him. Later that day, Aladdin is depressed, thinking Mahoro likes Mataka, but Shindo suddenly approaches him, so he asks Shindo how he knows about Senya. But Shindo tells him he's about to find out, and he leaves a note for him, before walking away. We return to Mataka, as Ichiya tells him that he will become stronger after he defeats Aladdin, but he doesn't want to do it, so Ichiya encourages him, saying Aladdin has been deceiving him. Aladdin is walking around the streets, wondering when his bath is going to get fixed, but Senya tells him that he should spend more time with Mataka. He wonders why Senya is always talking about Mataka, so he reveals that Mataka reminds him of someone, saying he used to train with his friend to become a honky person. In a flashback, we learn that Senya was a lonely boy when he saw Ichiya in a street fight, defeating a larger opponent in one hit. He starts to idolize Ichiya, wanting to become just like him, so he starts following him, and they become training partners. But one day, their friendship is ruined when he sensed the darkness in Ichiya. Back in the present, Senya explains that he wants Mataka to maintain his friendship with Aladdin, reminding him that they wanted to become honky people, but he explains that it's all in the past. But at that moment, Mataka suddenly appears, telling Aladdin to fight him. He mentions that he wants to become a honky person, and he starts attacking Aladdin, kicking him away. Senya thinks it's getting dangerous, so Aladdin decides to merge with him, allowing him to block Mataka's attacks. Mataka is surprised to see this, but he thinks he needs to defeat Aladdin at all costs, and Ichiya warns him that the darkness will consume him if he fails. So he delivers a devastating blow, knocking Aladdin down, but he hesitates, allowing Aladdin to escape, and Mataka appears to be conflicted, as Ichiya notes that his kindness is getting in the way. Aladdin returns home, wondering what's wrong with Mataka. He prepares to go to bed, but he sees the note that Shindo left him. So Aladdin decides to meet Shindo. Aladdin asks him about Senya's secret, so Shindo laughs, saying Senya's goal is to steal his body. Mataka returns to the shrine, where Ichiya reprimands him, calling him a coward. Ichiya starts to trash-talk Mitsu, saying he couldn't protect his family because he didn't have what it takes to become a honky person, so Mataka becomes angry, causing a mark to appear on his body, and he tries to attack Ichiya. But he suddenly disappears, and he reappears behind Mataka, advising him to use his anger to become stronger. We return to Aladdin, as he asks Shindo what he means, so he explains that Aladdin is going to die after Senya takes control of his body, and Shindo starts laughing, saying Aladdin has been deceived. But he doesn't believe Shindo, so he tells Aladdin to ask Senya if he wants to learn the truth, saying he needs to warn Mataka before it's too late. The next day, Aladdin returns to school, and he sees Mahoro, but he recalls their previous conversation, thinking she hates him. Zabu and Sagi are happy to see Mataka, thinking he's back to normal, and he invites them to have fun together. So they start playing at the arcade, but Mataka sees the NG boys, so he tells his friends that he's going to get drinks. But he bumps into one of the boys, so they become upset, but they recognize Mataka, knowing they aren't strong enough to defeat him, so they decide to leave. But Mataka suddenly attacks them, so they gang up on him, but he easily defeats them, and his friends wonder what's wrong with him, knowing he doesn't like to pick fights. He leaves his friends, and he walks around the town, as Ichiya advises him to defeat stronger opponents. At that moment, he sees Marito approaching, thinking about beating him up, and Jabba asks Mataka if he wants to fight, but he tells Jabba that he isn't the target. Mataka suddenly charges at Marito, trying to land a kick, but Marito blocks it, and he wonders why Mataka is picking a fight with him. He dodges Mataka's attacks, and he counters, but Mataka endures the blow, and Marito can't believe this. Mataka attacks Marito relentlessly, but he jumps to the air and lands a powerful kick, knocking Mataka down. Ichiya advises him to retreat, knowing he can't defeat Marito, so he decides to run away, and Jabba is about to pursue him, but Marito stops Jabba, telling him not to interfere. Aladdin returns home, trying to summon Senya, because he wants to know if Senya is planning to steal his body. But Senya doesn't respond, and his mother enters his room, thinking he has a girlfriend, so she advises him to surrender everything in the name of love. But he forces her to leave, and he continues to wonder if Senya is trying to kill him. Mataka returns to the shrine, where Ichiya tells him that he needs to keep fighting, or the monster will continue to haunt him. So he attacks the members of the Sigma gang, and Zabu tells Ken about this, saying Mataka is acting strange, so Ken orders Zabu to bring Mataka to him. Mataka sees Tatsudo, but he just walks away, and Ichiya asks him why he isn't fighting Tatsudo. So he explains that Tatsudo is too weak, thinking he needs to find a stronger opponent, but Ichiya tells him to attack Tatsudo anyway. So Mataka approaches him, and he's surprised to see Mataka, knowing he's been attacking the members of the Sigma gang. He tells Tatsudo to run if he's scared, but he charges in, and he manages to land a hit, but it does nothing, and Mataka kicks him away. But he refuses to give up, so Ichiya tells Mataka to keep fighting, but he hesitates, knowing Tatsudo doesn't stand a chance. So Ichiya advises him to be more ruthless, saying it's the only way to get rid of the monster. Jabba is at the convenience store when he hears people talking about Tatsudo, wondering why he was attacked. So Jabba looks for Tatsudo, and he realizes that Mataka beat him up, so Jabba tries to save him. Jabba realizes he's in terrible condition, so he becomes enraged, and he starts attacking Mataka, pushing him back. But Ichiya warns him that the monster is going to keep torturing him if he loses, so he charges in, kicking Jabba away. He struggles to get back up, but Mataka continues to attack him, so Tatsudo begs Mataka to stop, but he refuses, and he continues beating them. Back in the school, everyone talks about what happened, and they wonder why Mataka is assaulting people, because they know he's a good person, and Aladdin overhears this, but he can't believe this is happening. We cut to Jabba and Tatsudo, as Jabba reveals that he's depressed, because he wanted to defeat Mataka. Marito suddenly appears, asking them how they're feeling, and Tatsudo explains what happened, so Marito tells Jabba to leave Mataka to him. As they leave, Oda reminds Marito that Jabba and Mataka used to be evenly matched, thinking Mataka has become stronger, so Oda advises Marito to avoid him. But Marito looks forward to fighting him, thinking he's a worthy opponent. Mataka continues to assault the members of the Sigma gang, and Zabu arrives, asking him what's wrong with him, because he isn't acting like his usual self. But he explains that Zabu doesn't know him, saying he wants to get stronger, and Sagi becomes upset, saying they're worried about him. Zabu tells Mataka that Ken wants to see him, but he refuses to return to the headquarters, saying he will defeat Ken in the future. Everyone suddenly hears an announcement, and they realize that Marito is using the microphone, telling Mataka to go to the field, so that they can play together. Everyone knows they're going to fight, so they rush to the field, and the teacher tries to stop them, but they leave the classroom anyway. He realizes that Aladdin is the only one left in the room, thinking he's a great student, but he suddenly remembers Shindo's warning, realizing he needs to warn Mataka, so he also rushes to the field. We see everyone waiting for the fight to begin, wondering who's going to win, and one of them thinks Marito is going to lose, so Mahoro screams at him, saying Marito is invincible. Aladdin reaches the field, and he realizes that the fight has already begun. Marito charges in, landing a devastating blow, which pushes Mataka back, but he's able to endure it, and Marito realizes he's a worthy opponent, so he decides to stop holding back. He launches a kick, but Mataka blocks it, and he starts fighting aggressively, as Marito struggles to block his attacks. He sees an opening, and he tries to land the finishing blow, but Marito dodges, and he counters, knocking Mataka down. He gets back up, but Marito beats him up, asking him if that's all he can do. He tries to fight dirty, but Marito kicks him away, and everyone thinks he's done for, so Ichiya considers leaving him, thinking he won't be able to defeat Senya. Marito continues his beatdown, and he prepares to end the fight, but Mataka refuses to give up, saying he doesn't want to live in fear. So Ichiya changes his mind, realizing that Mataka is a great vessel, so Ichiya lends him his power, and they start fighting as one. Mataka blocks Marito's attack, and he lands a powerful kick, which blows Marito away. Everyone becomes amazed, wondering how he was able to do this, and Marito struggles to get back up, as Mataka approaches him, kicking him while he's down. He continues to attack Marito, so Mahoro becomes worried, and Marito realizes he has been defeated, so he becomes happy, because he's never lost before. Mahoro collapses, and Aladdin wonders what happened to Mataka. So he calls out to Senya, begging him to answer his questions, so Senya appears, and in a flashback, we learn that when the world started to know peace, the authorities ordered the soldiers to eliminate Honky people. We see Senya fighting Ichiya, who easily evades his attacks, and kicks him away. He admits defeat, saying he's no match for Ichiya, but he becomes upset, thinking Senya is mocking him. One day, Ichiya challenges Senya to fight to the death, but he refuses, asking Ichiya if he has lost his mind. But he suddenly attacks Senya, cutting his chest, so he fights back, punching Ichiya away. They continue fighting, and Ichiya manages to come out on top, but he thinks Senya is mocking him, telling him to get back up. But Ichiya suddenly gets shot, so he collapses, saying he's going to hold a grudge against Senya, and Senya also gets shot, so they both bleed to death. Back in the present, Senya explains that he needs to settle things with Ichiya, saying he wants to know why Ichiya wanted to fight to the death. Aladdin thinks Senya plans to kill him after his body is stolen, but Senya denies this, explaining that he plans to return it after he achieves his goal. But Aladdin doesn't believe him, telling him to leave, and Senya apologizes for hiding this from him, saying he had fun while they were together, before disappearing into thin air. Mataka continues to attack people, and he sees Aladdin waiting for him, warning him that he's going to die after Ichiya steals his body. But he doesn't care, saying he will do whatever it takes to defeat Aladdin. He walks away, as Ichiya wonders why he didn't fight Aladdin, so he explains that he needs to do something first. We see the members of the Sigma gang, as they wonder what's going to happen to them, because Marito has been defeated. They approach Oda, asking him if Sigma has a future, but he becomes upset, telling them that Sigma is going to recover. At the Minato Kai headquarters, the guards wonder what's wrong with Mataka, because he's been attacking people for no reason. They know that Ken plans to deal with him, but at that moment, they see Mataka approaching, and he knocks them down. Zabu appears, wondering what's gotten into him, but he calls out to Ken, challenging him to a fight. Saki asks Mataka what he's doing, but he pushes him away, so Zabu tells him to get a grip. But Ken appears, so Mataka tells him that the fight will be tomorrow, and he accepts the challenge, so Mataka walks away. We see Aladdin in his restaurant, when he hears students talking about Mataka, knowing he challenged Ken to a fight. Aladdin recalls what Mataka told him, and he sees Ken entering the restaurant, so Aladdin asks him if he wants to talk. We see Marito at the hospital, as Oda visits him, asking Mahoro if he has regained consciousness, but she denies this. Oda tells her to take a break, but she refuses, and she starts crying, begging her brother to wake up. Saki and Zabu wonder what they should do, knowing the fight is about to begin, and in a flashback, we see Saki and Zabu as they're about to join the Minato Kai. They look forward to joining the gang, knowing Ken won 300 fights in a row, so they think the gang is invincible. But they see Mataka beating up the guards, and he challenges Ken to a fight, so they become surprised, thinking he's insane. Ken accepts his challenge, and everyone thinks Mataka is going to die, but he charges in, kicking Ken with everything he has. But Ken completely endures it, and he tells Mataka to brace himself, as he delivers a powerful blow, which pushes him back. Mataka loses the fight, but Saki and Zabu give him a drink, and they start talking to him, thinking he's amazing. So he thanks them for the drink, and they become friends. Back in the present, Zabu tells Saki to find Aladdin before the fight begins, knowing he's Mataka's friend, and Saki agrees to do this. We see Jabba and Tatsudo at the hospital, but they realize that Marito is still unconscious, so they become worried, knowing he's been sleeping for 3 days. Jabba wants to defeat Mataka, saying he wants to avenge Marito, but Tatsudo stops him, telling him he's in no condition to fight. Tatsudo knows that the gang is in shambles, because they don't have a leader, but Oda assures them that Marito will recover, saying they need to protect the gang until he returns. Mataka makes his way to Ken, but Zabu blocks his path, asking him why he returned to his old ways. But he doesn't respond, and he keeps walking forward, so Zabu tells him that he will be banished from the gang if he fights Ken. Zabu charges in, attacking with everything he has, but his attacks are working, and Mataka counters with a devastating blow, causing him to fall. He asks Mataka if he has forgotten everything, but he attacks Zabu mercilessly, beating him to a bloody pulp. But he still refuses to give up, saying he won't let Mataka pass, so Mataka hits him again, knocking him out. Mataka is about to walk away, but Zabu grabs his leg, telling him they're still friends, so Mataka kicks him until he lets go. We return to Aladdin as Sagi enters his room, inviting him to watch Mataka's fight, but he wonders why he should go there, so Sagi reminds him that Mataka is his friend. We see Ken ready for the fight, and Mataka says he will defeat Ken so that he can become stronger. Sagi arrives with Aladdin, but he realizes that Zabu is nowhere to be found, so he starts looking for him. We learn that Mataka's parents abandoned him, and he was raised by Mitsu, but when Mitsu was sent to juvenile detention, Mataka lost sight of himself, because Mitsu was the only one supporting him. Mataka attacks Ken, who struggles to keep up with his moves, so the Minato Kai members become worried, thinking he's in trouble. Mataka lands a hit, but Ken endures it, so he continues his assault, but Ken manages to block his attacks, and he lands a powerful blow, which pushes Mataka back. Ken charges in, so Mataka tries to block, but Ken overpowers him, telling him to brace himself, as Ken uses his ultimate technique. But Mataka knows it's the same move that defeated him in the past, knowing he's far stronger than he used to be. Ichi emerges with him, and he delivers a kick with all his might, hitting Ken's head. He follows up with a series of attacks, and Ken is unable to defend himself, so everyone falls into despair, realizing he's about to lose. Mataka continues his onslaught, and Ken recalls that Mitsu told him to take care of Mataka, but Mataka lands a devastating attack. Ken refuses to go down, but Mataka realizes he can't move, so Mataka surrenders his uniform, knowing he has won the fight. Aladdin walks away, and he recalls that Ken told him to stop Mataka. But Aladdin wasn't sure if he can do this, so Ken revealed that he believes in Aladdin, thinking he can do anything with his fists. Mataka thinks it's time to fight Aladdin, and Ichiya becomes excited, knowing he's about to have another match with Senya. Aladdin returns to the shrine, and he takes the pistol, using it to shoot his head. Senya appears, but he's surprised to see Aladdin, who tells Senya to merge with him. In a flashback, Aladdin hears his classmates talking about Mataka because he's been training at the temple, so they think he's a weirdo. Aladdin becomes curious, so he observes Mataka while he's training, thinking he's amazing. He tries to stop a log as it's about to hit him, but it crashes into him, so Aladdin checks on him, asking him why he's doing this. So he explains that he's trying to become a honky person, and Aladdin thinks he's cool, so he decides to train with Mataka. Back in the present, Senya warns Aladdin that he could end up dying, but he doesn't care, saying he's willing to do anything to save Mataka. We see students walking around the town, wondering why the weather is weird, and they see Mataka glowing, so they run for their lives. We learn that Ichiya has taken control of Mataka's body, and he's looking forward to his fight with Senya. Sagi covers Zabu with bandages, thinking he was attacked by a group of thugs, but he asks Sagi about Mataka, saying they need to find him. Sagi reminds Zabu that he's in no condition to do this, but Zabu insists, so Sagi decides to help him. Mahoro gives Marito his favorite food, but he doesn't wake up, so she becomes sad, and she leaves the room. She hears the nurses talking about a patient who looks like a gorilla, so she realizes that Ken is in the hospital. She brings him to Marito's room, as she pretends to be a nurse, calling him by his name, and Marito regains consciousness, realizing that Ken is right beside him. So he becomes surprised, but everyone's happy that he has recovered. Aladdin leaves the temple, and he sees Mataka approaching, but Senya explains that Ichiya has taken over his body. So Aladdin prepares to fight, telling Senya to merge with him, but Senya reminds him that he could end up dying, but he doesn't care, saying he's willing to take the risk, and Senya takes control of his body. Ichiya explains that he waited 3 years to face Senya, but he asks Ichiya why he wanted to fight to the death. So he tells Senya he's about to find out, saying he will learn the answer in the middle of their fight. Ichiya attacks Senya, and he easily overpowers him. Senya tries to fight back, but Ichiya dodges his blows, and he counters, smashing Senya to the ground. He tries to resist, but Ichiya continues his onslaught, and Senya realizes he can't win, thinking he's no match for Ichiya. He recalls that Ichiya inspired him to become a honky person, so he thinks he can never reach Ichiya's level. Senya is knocked down, as Ichiya explains that he wanted Senya to kill him because his health was deteriorating, so he wanted to die fighting Senya. He prepares to end the fight, and Senya realizes he has failed Ichiya, thinking he isn't strong enough to defeat him. but Aladdin hits him, telling him to fight seriously, so Senya explains that he isn't holding back, but Aladdin doesn't believe him, telling him to stop running away. So Senya wakes up, and he lands a powerful punch, which leaves a mark on Ichiya's body. So Ichiya starts laughing, knowing Senya is no longer holding back, and their powers clash, creating flashes of light. Ichiya struggles against Senya, who starts punching with incredible strength, as Ichiya notes that Senya always had the potential to surpass him. But he's happy that Senya is fighting with his full strength, and they both enjoy the battle as they continue to exchange blows. They both attack with everything they have, and Senya comes out on top, so Ichiya is happy that he's finally able to surpass him. But the dark figure consumes Ichiya, and Mataka regains control of his body, saying he's going to defeat Aladdin. Senya realizes he absorbed Ichiya, and he suddenly charges in, knocking Senya down, as he notes that he's no match for Mataka. But he thinks about Mahoro, so he refuses to give up, saying he wants to get lucky before he dies. He regains control of his body, and Senya is happy to see this, but Aladdin wonders what happened to Mataka, so Senya explains that he absorbed Ichiya to amplify his powers. Aladdin struggles against his overwhelming strength, so Senya tells him to stay down, thinking Mataka will kill them if he doesn't back down. But Aladdin refuses to give up, asking Mataka why he wants to get stronger, but he continues his relentless assault, as he tells Aladdin that he wants the monster to disappear. But Aladdin tackles him, telling him he has become a monster, so Aladdin wonders what he's afraid of. Aladdin realizes that Mataka is afraid of being alone, and he feels guilty for ignoring him. So Aladdin decides to stop running away, and Mataka lands a devastating kick. Aladdin is about to fall, but he stands his ground, and Senya is surprised, as he starts to glow, and he throws a punch with everything he has. Mataka gets hit, and the impact creates a massive explosion, which can be felt from miles away. Senya realizes that Aladdin has turned into a honky person, so he thanks Aladdin for teaching him what honky really means. He says he wants to fight Aladdin, but he isn't interested in fighting again, so Senya says goodbye, and he suddenly disappears. Mataka regains consciousness, and he realizes that he caused trouble for everyone. But he sees his friends approaching, and Aladdin shows him the friendship stone, so Mataka starts crying, realizing he was never alone. After the incident, Mataka returns to the Minato Kai, and Ken forgives him, accepting him into the gang once again. Mahoro continues to ignore Aladdin, and Mataka apologizes to the Sigma gang, so Marito forgives him. After some time, we see Aladdin trying to imitate Marito, thinking Mahoro will like him if he's able to pull it off, but he realizes that the bullet on his head is gone. He starts thinking about Senya, as Mataka looks after Mitsu at the hospital, and he realizes that his brother is about to recover. Aladdin returns to the shrine, realizing it has been completely destroyed. He sees a bullet, so he picks it up, and he starts calling out to Senya, but he doesn't respond, so he throws it into the ocean, but it bounces off a soda can, and it ends up hitting his head, causing Senya to appear, and he's happy to see Aladdin again. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.